I remember the morning clearly. The kind where everything looks peaceful, and you're almost lulled into thinking the world is still sane. The sun was just peeking over the tree line, painting the lake in streaks of gold that glimmered like molten glass. My boat floated lazily near the dock, a soft clink of water against its hull marking the only sound. I took a deep breath, feeling that rare sense of quiet I always crave out here. Then, the sound of heels on gravel shattered it. Sharp, deliberate, with that unmistakable "I'm about to make your life miserable" rhythm. I looked up, and there she was, Karen, the self-appointed sheriff of our HOA. Blonde hair perfectly coiffed, designer sunglasses shielding her eyes like a visor against morality, and that tight, judgmental smile. "Mr. Jefferson," she said, waving a clipboard like a weapon. Her voice was sweet but brittle, like sugar over broken glass. "You need to move your boat immediately. HOA regulations clearly state—" I raised an eyebrow, letting her words hang. The boat bobbed gently, its reflection mirrored in the water, as if mocking the seriousness of the moment. Karen," I said, careful to keep my voice even. "This is my boat, and, well, technically, the lake is mine too." Her sunglasses flicked down an inch, enough to catch a glimpse of the color of my eyes before she blinked it away. "Excuse me?" I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head. She coughed, as if clearing her memory of the facts that weren't convenient. The HOA rules." She waved her clipboard again. "Everyone has to comply, Mr. Jefferson." I leaned back against the railing, watching her fluster grow like smoke curling from a candle. The ducks on the lake didn't seem to notice. Or maybe they were smarter than Karen, not wasting energy on nonsense. "Sure," I said, voice dripping with calm amusement. "I'll move it, after you explain how you plan to enforce HOA rules on my lake." Her jaw tightened. There was a beat where I thought she might storm off in defeat, or perhaps run for backup, knowing she couldn't possibly win. Then, with the slowest exhale I've ever seen, she said, "You can't just own an entire lake." I smiled, feeling the shift in the air. The tension wasn't just between us. It was about to engulf the whole neighborhood. The serene morning had vanished, replaced with that low hum of impending chaos. And just as I opened my mouth to remind her that, yes, I did indeed own the lake, the sound of tires crunching on the gravel told me she wasn't alone. The crunch of tires grew louder, then stopped, a little too close to my dock. I squinted through the morning haze and saw her backup, another HOA board member. Clipboard in hand, a middle-aged man with the kind of nervous energy that says he's just here to follow orders and avoid trouble. Karen's sunglasses were sliding down now, eyes sharp as daggers. "See, Mr. Jefferson," she said, pointing at the man like he was the muscle. "I have witnesses. This is not a request." I let out a quiet chuckle. "Witnesses? That's cute." I gestured to the calm water. "My lake, where the sunlight danced on the ripples. You do realize I own this lake, right? Including the dock, the water, and yes, the boat floating on it." Her face flickered, shock, disbelief, indignation, a combination that could power a small wind turbine. You own the lake?" I leaned forward slightly, letting my voice take on that calm, dry humor tone I sometimes reserve for idiots on power trips. "Yes, bought it last year, all of it. Every inch of water you're trying to police with HOA regulations." She opened her mouth, closed it, and tried again. "But HOA rules apply to everyone." I smiled, letting my words sink in like stones dropped into a still pond. "Not quite. HOA rules don't supersede property ownership. I mean, technically, this is private property. Yours is just a suggestion." Her backup shuffled awkwardly, looking between us, clearly unsure if he should intervene or quietly vanish. Karen's voice pitched higher, her perfect control unraveling. "I don't care. You can't just—" A honking sound interrupted her tirade. I looked over my shoulder to see a few neighbors arriving, drawn by the commotion. Phones came out, cameras started clicking. Suddenly, the private standoff had an audience. I watched her panic deepen. Every sentence she started, every attempt at authority, was drowned out by murmurs, camera flashes, and the realization that her power wasn't just fragile, it was public. She was losing, and fast. Then, in the middle of her sputtering, she made a move, lunging toward the dock, hand outstretched toward my boat. I froze for just a second, heart pounding. That split second gave her the perfect opportunity to make a catastrophic mistake. And she did. Her foot caught the edge of the dock. There was a scream, a flail of arms, and splash. Karen went headfirst into the lake, designer shoes and all, floundering like a fish caught in a storm. The HOA man jumped back horrified, while the neighbors erupted into laughter. I could only shake my head, barely holding back my own chuckle. She was soaked, furious, sputtering, and now fully aware that this was my lake in every sense. And then I noticed something in her wet, trembling hand, the clipboard. It was floating toward me, as if the universe itself wanted me to see what she was planning next. I fished the soggy clipboard from the water, letting it drip onto the dock. Karen was flailing in the shallows, her hair plastered to her face, mascara running in streaks that looked like war paint gone wrong. Her voice was a high-pitched squeal, half indignation, half rage. "You think this is funny?" she shouted, scrambling to stand, arms flailing like a puppet with broken strings. "I'm calling the police. This is harassment." I leaned on the railing, letting my calm demeanor contrast with the chaos in front of me. "Please," I said, with all the dry sarcasm I could muster. "Call away. I'm happy to explain property law to the police." She glared, dripping water all over my perfectly polished dock, clearly calculating how to salvage some shred of authority. Then she pointed the clipboard at me like a sword. "I have signatures. I have rules. You can't just—" Her words were drowned out by the laughter of the neighbors who had gathered. Some were filming, some were whispering in disbelief, and some were taking bets on how long she would stay upright. The entire lakefront was alive with the sound of cameras clicking and murmurs turning into snickers. I finally straightened, walking slowly toward the water's edge, feeling the morning sun warm my back. "You know," I said, voice calm but sharp, "there's a reason I bought this lake. Peace. Quiet. Freedom from people who think rules can bend reality." Karen's eyes widened, her chest heaving. I don't care about your freedom. This is community property. You can't just—" I shook my head. "Actually, Karen, I can, and I did." That's when it hit me. She wasn't going to stop. Not now. Not ever. She was a hurricane of entitlement and rage, and the HOA man was just her wind, helplessly spinning in her orbit. She sputtered, trying to come up with a new angle, a loophole, a magical rule that could save her pride. "I'm going to the HOA board! You can't do this!" And then she froze, mid-sentence, staring at something behind me. I turned slowly. There, gliding toward the dock in a tiny speedboat, was my lawyer. Yes, in full early morning casual mode, sunglasses and all, looking like he'd stepped out of a Miami courtroom scene. Karen's jaw literally dropped. You have a lawyer?" I shrugged, leaning against the railing. "Kind of a habit when you own the whole lake and have to deal with—" Karen. The neighbors held their breath. Even the ducks seemed to sense the tension spike. And for the first time, Karen's carefully maintained confidence began to crumble into raw panic. She looked between me, the lawyer, and the cameras, and I could almost see her calculating how to escape this disaster. But there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And then, in a voice trembling with fury, she finally said the words that guaranteed this confrontation would spiral even further. You think you can just get away with this?" I smiled. "Oh, Karen, we're just getting started." The morning sun was fully awake now, sparkling off the lake like a million shards of glass. Karen was drenched, mascara running down her cheeks, clipboard crumpled in one hand, and rage radiating off her like heat waves. My lawyer stepped onto the dock, briefcase in hand, exuding that calm authority that only makes someone like Karen wilt faster. "Good morning, Karen," he said, voice measured, professional, almost soothing. "I understand there's been a misunderstanding." She pointed at me, trembling. He can't just own the lake. He's breaking all the rules. My lawyer held up a hand. "Actually, everything here is fully within his rights. Property deeds, lake boundaries, all in order. I've reviewed them personally." Karen's flustered pause lasted longer than polite conversation would allow. She looked at the neighbors filming, the ducks bobbing calmly, even the gentle lapping of the water mocking her desperation. Every argument she tried to muster evaporated before it even formed. You think you're above everyone?" she spat finally. I shrugged, casually resting a hand on the dock railing. "Not above, just on top of the lake." My subtle sarcasm earned a few stifled laughs from the onlookers. Her hands shook. I can't. You'll regret this. I'm telling the HOA. They already know," I said, watching her begin to panic. And I've copied them on the property deed, survey maps, and local jurisdiction. You can protest all you want, but legally this lake isn't subject to HOA rulings. Her shoulders slumped slightly, but the fire in her eyes hadn't gone out. It was still burning, just trapped, like steam in a kettle ready to explode. She opened her mouth to retort again, but my lawyer stepped forward, laying down the gentle, unyielding authority. "Karen," he said evenly, "any further escalation will be, well, legally unwise." She froze. Then slowly, dramatically, she dropped the clipboard into the water, where it floated face down like a surrender flag. Her designer heels squelched on the dock as she backed away, muttering threats that sounded more like frustrated complaints than actionable warnings. The crowd, sensing victory, started to disperse, but not before whispering and giggling, capturing every moment on their phones. I sat back on the railing, soaking in the quiet for a moment, savoring the lake returning to its original serenity, as if it had never known the chaos. Karen finally stomped off, muttering to herself, dragging her back up behind her like a retreating storm. I watched them disappear into the trees, the morning sun glinting off the water, the lake calm again, and I couldn't help but smile. Owning the lake wasn't just about property. It was about peace, control, and occasionally, witnessing the world's most dramatic meltdown in designer shoes. As I leaned back, the gentle clink of water against the boat's hull sounded like a reward. A reminder that, sometimes, patience and a little sarcasm are all you need to survive a Karen-level HOA storm. The lake was mine. The chaos was gone. And for now, the peace was absolute.